Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we have a video courtesy of WhistlinCorsair in the Tier 8 Premium American battleship, the Alabama, playing in Ranked on Neighbors. And one of the things I've noticed about Neighbors on Ranked is, more often than not, teams seem to be going to kind of their own cap, so to say. You know, in this case, A, if you were in the south, B, rather than going to C. And this is a lot different from the old Neighbors map, where you just had the two caps basically centered in the middle of the map, and almost everyone went to where C is now to contest that cap rather than the more open water cap. This is one of the changes I've enjoyed that Wargaming has made. It's, I think, made this map a little more dynamic. With C as far away as it is, it really does force you to separate into two different groups. You know, if you're all the way in A, supporting C isn't as big a reality. Now, you still definitely can, particularly if you're in a ship like the Alabama or really any of the battleships. But if you're in a cruiser or especially a DD, odds are you just don't have the gun range to affect really what is happening at sea. So if your whole team pretty much goes A, you have to make it count. If you split up evenly, you have to be more cautious about how you play, and if you are going to take C, you need to make sure your force at A is strong enough that they can hold any kind of counter push. Now, the first enemy ships have just been detected. You can see enemy North Carolina, Tirpitz, and, well, another North Carolina. And, well, Corsair picks off and decides to shoot at the one that is really closest to C. And you can see people already pinging for the Otago that is soloing C to get back, to turn out. It's not a safe place to be. The volley doesn't go quite as Corsair probably imagined, 2,600 damage there, but it's a start, and every hit point counts. Now, obviously, they've taken their own cap. That really goes without question. The only way I've seen that not happen is if none of the cruisers or destroyers come this way and it's just a battleship, and the battleship kind of gets shot enough. You can see some deep water torpedoes in the water over here. The Benson doing a good job to detect them, and when you look at the enemy team, you can see an Asashio and a Kagero. So you know you're going to be dealing with a lot of torps if you're in a battleship. The Bismarck has taken a big hit trying to turn out. Corsair should easily enough dodge these PEDs, but you wonder about that Bismarck. You definitely don't want to lose it like you have already lost the Otago. And that pretty much guarantees the enemy C cap. So pressure's already mounting on Corsair's team to, you know, get a kill, make it back up. 10,000 damage that volley, definitely helping them do so, but that in itself isn't enough. And Corsair's in a tough situation here. Really, you need to be turning around and contesting what's going on over at sea, but in doing so, you'd give them all pretty much a perfect broadside. So you've got to time the turn and, you know, sacrifice something to RNGs this to hope that if shells do come your way, they're not going to hit. Another good hit there, 10,000 damage, and, well, Corsair's got himself turned around. No one took shots. And the Alabama is probably one of the better ships to do that turn because, well, she's got a bit of a quick rudder in comparison to something like the North Carolina. Just because of the length of her hull, she turns a little sharper. In the meantime, both destroyers have been able to go down to B and take it away. And that pretty much changes the game entirely. The entirety of the enemy team has now holed up in C, pretty much the worst place they could be in now. Meanwhile, Corsair's team has A and B, and this is going to be a very tricky situation for the enemy team to get out of. And I've seen this happen once or twice, you know, teams kind of going with the old way. Corsair using a spotting plane to get up over that island, take a peek at this North Carolina, line them up, and take the shot. Now, obviously with both destroyers, you're going to want them to spread out. They spot an Asashio, and if they can get rid of this Asashio along with the rest of the team, they're in a great position. You know, the Kagero can sit at B, the Benson can sit at A, and they can pretty much guarantee the enemy team can't do anything. Sadly, the DD slips away, though it looks like it's been forced to turn around and abandon the cap, at least momentarily, before slipping back in. And here's where you really make your big choice. Do you sail forward, come out between the caps, hoping to catch these guys heading up north, or do you turn around and hope to kind of reestablish a position on the north? Now, based on the destroyers, I would say come south. You need the protection of the destroyers, especially with the potential for torpedoes on the enemy team. And, well, speaking of torpedoes, that enemy torpedoes just ate a huge chunk of damage of friendly well, not friendly, but WhistlinCorsair's team. Their torps hit. And really, that's the target I'd be going for. Get rid of a ship. The torpedoes is repairing some of the damage, but if you can take them out, it evens up the scores. And despite the fact that you're once again down on ships, well, you're doing better. Corsair sees the North Carolina, though, and ends up taking the shot at him. Now, I don't know if the torpedo was really out of range, but you could see him on the short side of the island, and it looked like he could be hit. So that's who I'd be going for. Although, now, with an Otago spotted and having eaten a peed, that's the target I'd be after. Get rid of the cruiser. It's an easy, quick kill if you're a battleship, and really you can see this enemy team just keeps eating torp after torp. Pretty much every one of them, the Otago, North Carolina, and New Orleans, managing to eat at least one torpedo from the spread. And you can see Corsair lining up the New Orleans, but it appears his targeting didn't switch over, and that could hurt him as far as accuracy goes, but still lands a nice volley, 9,500 damage, and that means the New Orleans is just about a goner. And with him pressing in like he is, he's going to become the focus. And that's really the thing about these ranked battles. If you become the nail that sticks out, the hammer's coming your way. It's just a matter of fact. And right now, he's the only thing on the enemy team detected. So you can guarantee Corsair's team is going to get rid of him. And there's no way for that New Orleans to disappear. And, well, a Citadel from Corsair guarantees he is out of the match. The Otago is redetected, as are the Tirpitz in North Carolina, and despite being down a few points, things are in no way dire. You can see more deep water peds going through that Benson smoke, really meaning nothing. That's my problem with the Asashio, is it's a bit of a novelty. Sure, it can do a ton of damage to a battleship, but its inability to contest cruisers and destroyers removes a huge chunk of its potential role. Particularly in ranked, where you just don't have as many ships. In a random battle, you can go out there and farm all day, but in a ranked match, you're just not as competitive. Now you can see the friendly cog has managed to slip all the way around the map, gotten into sea, and is taking the cap. Meanwhile, the friendly Benson pulled forward and is pushing into A, spotting the Asashio. And while Corsair thankfully has been careful, not really pushing around this corner at high speed, more than enough island between him and that enemy DD to keep him safe. Now the Benson's got a smoke up, but he's doing so in the cap, so the enemy team is not building any points at this point. And I'm starting to wonder where this enemy Cogro is. The friendly Bismarck goes down to some enemy fire, really just getting worked down once again, pushed out much further than all the allies. And you know, this match isn't over. Corsair landing a great hit there on the Otago, floating Citadel she has, 2 sits, and a huge chunk of damage, and takes out a big chunk of the enemy. Which is good because, well, the Alabama, despite having the Asashio spotted not too long ago, decided, I'm sailing out, I'm doing it, and 8 torps. And that's always a risk, and right now, you know, you can see the Benson there. Engines are damaged, but you need the Benson in the open spotting. You need to be able to see these enemy ships. And, well, the Cogro continues to just kind of push out to the flank, and I don't know if that Cog has RPF and knows where the enemy DD is or what's up there, but looks to be just kind of circling in behind the enemy, and that could work, it may not. You still have to worry about torps from this Japanese destroyer in close, but at a minimum, the Benson's starting to take the cap again, it looks like. So maybe you'll have that going for you. And, well, enemy torpedoes from the front, it's safe to say where that enemy DD is. Well, the unspotted Qckro. Thankfully, RNG was a little kind here. The spreads going either side of Corsair, not requiring too much maneuvering. Shells hitting a little more accurately, but things are okay. Corsair's still got all his repair parties. I'd be jamming one myself right now. And Corsair seems to agree, hitting it, because you only have, so much health you can repair. Plus, when you factor in the cooldown, you really want that cooldown available when you're going to need it. And Corsair is going to need every hit point he can get soon. So waiting for the absolute max you can get out of a repair party, not always worth it. Now personally, I'd be going for the turrets. It's the lowest health target that's spotted. Granted, its armor can be a little tricky at times, but both North Carolina's been doing a pretty decent job of keeping their bows in. Now, more Deepwater torps. The Benson spotting them early enough. Corsair should be able to find the hole, and you can see him focusing in, just tapping reverse and forward, trying to back himself up enough to get into the hole in the peds. And he does for the first set. There's a second set coming though, and well, this North Carolina's showing a lot of sides, so he decides that's the target I'm going to hit. I'd still be going for the turrets. I'd be trying to remove one target, generally pick the lowest health one. And, well, you can see Bravo is getting taken as well, which means the Qckro is to the south. This is a tricky position for Corsair to be in. The Benson kind of just sitting in his smoke shooting, though it looks as if, because he's not actually in the smoke, he is detected. You can see him sitting outside it shooting, and with an enemy destroyer down in B, he's spotted pretty easily. Meanwhile, out at the back of the map, you can see more friendly Qckro torps coming to the ass of these enemy battleships. And things aren't super dire yet. They're not great, but they're definitely not over. The enemy battleships, they're getting worked down bit by bit. You've got a points lead. There's no reason to get aggressive. You see Corsair there trying to finish this North Carolina off. Another good hit. The Asashio was spotted again, and the Qckro was spotted. Both those DDs fairly low health, so things aren't over, and the friendly Qckro takes out the turrets, and nearly North Carolina gets taken out there by the Benson, but North Carolina slips through the torps. Thankful part is that forces a broadside situation to Corsair. Corsair not taking that for granted, finishing off the enemy BB. So now you've got one destroyer and a battleship versus two DDs in a battleship, and this is tricky. The repair party comes up once again, available because of when he used it. And you can see it looks like the Asashio is firing his guns, and I really think that is a mistake. You're not a particularly strong gun destroyer. Don't give your position up. You could see Corsair was almost ready to hit him. And this North Carolina, why are you coming around a corner nearly broadside on to an enemy? He doesn't eat a lot of damage there, gets a little lucky. And you can see Corsair here rapidly looking around, just trying to figure out his distances, everything. That torp slipping under the bow, though he's not looking to be as lucky with the second volley. But considering how many torpedoes have come his way, you'll take only having eaten one. And his guns coming back onto target just in time, and the North Carolina turning broadside on to try and get that rear turret. And that's just not a smart play. Corsair taking advantage, a big hit, doesn't get him done, but now you know every one of those turrets is fired. Corsair is able to return the favor, but those shells just appear to whiff. They don't hit anything. And that's confusing to me, because at that range, I didn't think Corsair aimed too low. Thankfully, front turrets come up before the enemy has his available, and they finish off the remaining battleship. Now, one destroyer has headed over to sea to try to contest the points, but with 5 minutes left, things are looking good. You still have to worry if you're Corsair, but another repair party is available. You better believe he hit that button right away. And you still do have a destroyer. You also now know where one of the nearby enemy DDs is. One is all the way at sea, so that's not very helpful. But you've got something in A, be it the Qckro or a Sashio. It's hard to say. And really those torps going by doesn't give you any better a hint, though they do appear to come up from the area the Sashio was last spotted. So maybe he's reverted back into A. This is a situation, and you can see Corsair calling in the map, the Qckro's just got to get into A. And with the hit points those DDs have had remaining spotted, full health Qckro, no problem winning that gunfight. But the Qckro kind of just kites him behind the land, and you can see pretty much every ally starting to call him out like, man, you've got to do this. And this is something you see a little too often. Ships really preserving every last hit point. At this point, with where you know the other DD is, you need to dive in at the Sashio. The Qckro can't get hurt by torps. The Sashio is not winning that by gunfight. Plus, you have Corsair nearby to help with that fight. But it looks like it's going to have to be Corsair to be the tip on this spear. Puts his plane up. Hopefully it can spot some torps a little early. Probably won't, but you take every little advantage you can get. And with every second, the enemy team is closing the point gap. Now right now, Corsair is sitting on 4 kills, 138,000 damage, and has had a solid game, and you would hate to see this go down the drain, because you've had a Qckro who has maybe been a little too safe in the late game. He's done a good job so far. He took A, took B, went around, took C. So you can't fault him for having taken caps. And ultimately, that Qckro is going to be on the top of the team as an experienced earn. Now, the enemy DD makes a mistake, gets way too close there to launch torpedoes. Corsair is going to eat damage here, but he gets his guns off. Doesn't take them all out, but gets enough damage in there that it counts. And the Sashio once again reappears. And this is a situation the friendly Qckro's got to be shooting his guns. Full health. You know, the Qog's got more hit points than both enemy destroyers, and he waits till that moment to shoot. And I get that cap points matter, and even right now, you know, needs what, 34 to 60. The enemy team's going to win this if they don't get a kill or get into a cap. Now, thankfully, enemy DD gets spotted again. Corsair puts some rounds into the air, gets the Kraken, and wins the match. And overall, quite a good game for Corsair. 845,000 credits, 6,000 XP, Dreadnought, High Caliber, Dev Strike, Kraken, 141,000 damage. And in my mind, really helped his team win this by just not overexposing. Particularly when they got the 2 caps, you know, that enemy, or the friendly ship, sailing out in those torps. Now, the Qckro definitely made this one harder than it needed to be. If the Qog had just turned in and contested A when the Sashio had stopped in its smoke, would have been over far sooner, but probably would have meant Corsair didn't manage to get his Kraken. End of the day, the Qckro finishes top, and I'd say this is twofold. One, the Qog took 4 caps, one of which was solo, and put a lot of torpedo damage into the back of enemies. Now, Corsair himself did a lot of damage as well, but it only adds up to so much, and that's why the Qckro finished top of the team. And it's one of the things that bugs me with ranked, because had this been a loss, I think Corsair probably did more for the team. Even if he was a bit cautious with his placement, the Qckro's, you know, inability to commit into that cap when he had a clear hit point advantage to just go in at that DD really did frustrate me watching this replay, and I'm sure others will have seen that and been like, why didn't he just dive in? You know, you've got 1,000 hit point destroyer versus full health. Only the worst gun player ever could lose that. But didn't end up mattering. DD got spotted, Corsair took him out, got the Kraken, and the win. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this. Corsair, I hope you can make it to 1. I know so many people are trying to do it, and it's a long grind. And this did come from a couple weeks ago, so who knows where Corsair is now. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. And as always, I am Qckslvrslash. I'll have another one for you all later.